What did you think about this crazy weekend in college wrestling and all of the debuts, like Nick Suriano's return to the mat in a Michigan singlet? He wrestled against Pitt's Gage Curry and started his 2022 season with a major decision victory, as well as an extra match where he won by technical fall. This match almost didn't happen this weekend because there was another duel that Pitt had on their schedule that was canceled, and they said, you know what, Michigan, you know what, Army, why don't you come in and wrestle? There's a lot of that going on this season with the virus protocols. Teams are just ready to scrap, and Nick Suriano was sure ready to scrap for this weekend. He has Ohio State coming up with Malik Heinzelman this weekend, and one guy who made his 2022 season debut as well was Michael Kemerer, who was rumored maybe not to return this season as of last week. Well, he quickly shut down those rumors on Twitter and jumped right back into an Iowa Hawkeyes singlet and an arm brace as well. He won against Minnesota 9-2 and then teched Purdue's Garrett Ninehouse in a major win, and I'll explain why that really meant so much and why that sets Kemerer apart from the rest of the field at 174 pounds in just a little bit. And yeah, he's in that arm brace, but I'll tell you what, when you've been wrestling for as long as Kemerer and in college for as long as Kemerer, you're going to have some bumps and bruises, and Iowa just looked completely dominant against Purdue, who they almost shut out, and they even debuted Drake Ayala at 125 pounds. Spencer's out, and he actually just recently had his surgery over the weekend, and Ayala is in. Now, he didn't necessarily have the debut that the Hawkeyes were hoping for because of his loss to Pat McKee of Minnesota. He lost 8-6 to him for the third time this season, but he did have another big win over the weekend. And if you're interested in what that is, as well as the other crazy upsets that happened, then let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's going on, wrestling fans? My name's Josiah, and welcome to Fanco Wrestling, your source for college wrestling news and discussion. And for this week's wrestling headlines, make sure you hit that like button if you're getting awesome wrestling news and you're really enjoying this coverage. It actually really helps the channel. And one thing, talking about the channel, we've actually been nominated for Wrestling Media Outlet of the Year by the National Wrestling Media Association, which I am extremely grateful to be a part of the rest of the nominees and finalists with Matt Scouts, the Des Moines Register, WrestleStat, and Connecticut Wrestling Online. This is a big honor for Fanco Wrestling, which we just started 2019, January 2019, so that was 3 years ago, and now here we are being nominated for this big award. We couldn't be here without your support, so thank you for supporting Fanco Wrestling by watching our videos, by subscribing to our content, by liking our content, by backing our content on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. And now let's get on to the upsets of the week. And speaking of, I mentioned Drake Ayala at the beginning. Now, he lost to Pat McKee, but he did have a big win against Devin Schroeder, a top 5 Devin Schroeder of Purdue, and what a win it was. Now, he won 6-1 against Schroeder, and look, like, if you were counting out Iowa, which I don't know why you were, but if you were, this puts them right back into that team title conversation. When you have, Spencer Lee, it's really difficult to lose him. And Ayala wasn't expecting to make his debut this year. Even over the weekend, Ybarra was at 125 listed to start, and Ayala came in and is looking really good. He's looking like he could potentially make the podium. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that's something that could definitely happen and will help Iowa in team points. You lose Spencer, but if you still get an All-American, that's a pretty good backup to Spencer Lee. Now, the next guy that had a big upset over the weekend was Michael DeAugustino of Northwestern, who took out Pat McKee of Minnesota 8-7 in a thriller of a match. He also beat Eric Barnett of Wisconsin 9-5, and this was his season debut as well. There were a lot of debuts this weekend, but DeAugustino debuted with 2 impressive wins, and he's returning this season after making the round of 12 at last year's national championships, and he's in that 125 conversation as well. Now that Spencer's not there, that field has opened up a ton, and I think there's a lot of excitement in our future. Now, 141 pound, this had to be one of the upsets of the entire weekend. Cole Matthews taking out Stefan Micic. Did you expect that? I didn't. Number 3 Micic being upset by a number 23 ranked wrestler was crazy. there's some exciting stuff happening in the Pitt wrestling program. Now, Matthews, before this, he was a national qualifier, right? So he's pretty good. But this was the best win of his career, an exciting win, and hopefully he keeps that momentum going forward. And as he was wrestling against Micic, he was riding him tough on top. Even was able to turn him to his back near the end of the second period, and was close to pinning him. I mean, it wasn't a pin or anything, but it was close. If Micic didn't bridge up like crazy like he did, he may have been stuck, which would have been crazy. But I think it was even better that he wasn't stuck. It was just a quality win, just showing that this was a great win by Matthews and actually earned him Fanco's Wrestler of the Week. Looking like he's getting some pretty good technique from Luke Pletcher. And I wonder if Pitt could, after Wenzel last year, after Bonacorsi last year, if now they could get another national finalist, that would be huge for the program. I mean, this is just a big turnaround for the program. And there were a couple other upsets this weekend. Pat Brucky beat Nino Bonacorsi in that dual meet as well. Austin Gomez defeated Yaya Thomas. This was a number 11 over number 4 seed. Gomez is right there in that conversation at 149. Ed Scott over Quincy Monday. Scott continues to roll. Scott of NC State after that big win over Caleb Young at the collegiate duels. Now he beats Quincy Monday. And then Max Lyon defeated Taylor Venz. This was number 23 Lyon at 184 pounds of Purdue defeating Taylor Venz of Nebraska by a 7-2 decision. And his teammate, Garrett Ninehouse, had a pretty darn big upset over the weekend as well. I'm always a big supporter of Garrett because he graduated from my high school back in Cannon McMillan, back in Western Pennsylvania. But Ninehouse of Purdue, a number 21 ranked wrestler, defeated number 3 Mikey Labriola. Of course, these rankings are coming from Intermat, and he beat Labriola by a score of 6-4. Garrett made the round of 12 last year at the national championships, and he surprisingly had a 12-9 record. So he's shown that he's also right there in that conversation. But 174 pounds is just as crazy as any other weight. But this is what I mentioned kind of at the beginning of the video with Kemerer having that quality win, because Kemerer is the number 2 ranked wrestler. Starachi's number 1, and then Labriola was number 3. Now, Ninehouse just beat Labriola, and then Kemerer teched Ninehouse, which honestly just blew my mind. I mean, he was right there battling him for the first 2 periods, and then Kemerer just took control, won by tech. Wasn't expecting, that big of a margin of victory. And then we have to talk about some dual meet upsets that happened over the weekend. Because Purdue, that was the first one. They beat Nebraska. Number 18 Purdue over number 8 Nebraska. Beat them 18-15 in Lions, and Ninehouse's victories obviously helped with that. But then Wisconsin, number 16 Wisconsin, defeated Rutgers 19-14. And this cracks me up. Let me tell you a story real quick about this guy on Instagram, a big Fanco wrestling supporter, Dylan. His name is Big Dilly 6971, and he is big on the Wisconsin hype train. He loves Wisconsin, a Wisconsin super fan. I think Dylan honestly thinks that Wisconsin is going to win a national team title. But he's always saying that Wisconsin's going to win. So when they finally did beat Rutgers this week, 19-14, he was like, I told you that was going to happen. Cracked me up. I love the big support over on Instagram, though. And this was a match, interestingly enough, with 0 upsets. There were only 1 bonus point victory on either side, and it was just tough guys winning big matches. And you want to talk about tough guys, you got to talk about Lehigh in what they did over the weekend by defeating Cornell. Lehigh is full of some of the toughest hard knocks in the country. A lot of PA wrestlers, but number 21 Lehigh defeated number 9 Cornell 18-15. The exact same score as Purdue over Nebraska, actually. And the deciding matches were 174 and 184. Cornell was the better team on paper, but there were still a couple of weights that could have gone in Lehigh's favor, and Lehigh ended up getting those matches. But it actually came early on, those 174 and 184 pound matches, when Jake Logan defeated Chris Foca and A.J. Burkhart defeated Jonathan Lowe. These were 2 good wins over 2 new guys from Cornell. It honestly flipped the entire duel early on in Lehigh's favor, and it continued to roll through the rest of the duel, winning ultimately in the end. What an incredibly tough schedule that Lehigh has. They've already had Penn State, Mizzou, Iowa. Upcoming, they have Oklahoma State, Arizona State. I mean, they are getting guys ready for the postseason, getting guys ready for those tough matches at the national championships, and it puts them in a really good spot. I mean, just not even going to the national championships yet, but to win the EIWA championships, which a lot of people kind of wrote off Cornell's winning that this year. Lehigh's not going down without a fight. And finally, some Penn State news, because what's a wrestling headlines without some crazy Penn State news? And this is what the Penn State news has been like recently. You ever get a big thing of fries, and, you know, you're excited to eat those fries, but then there's an accidental curly in there. And man, like, you can get a thing of curly fries, and that's great. But when you find an accidental curly in your big thing of fries, oh, man, that's exciting. It was out of nowhere, and it's just super thrilling. That's what Penn State wrestling news is like, because nobody's expecting this stuff to happen, and then, boom, Maxine's going to Penn State. Boom, Hildebrandt's transferring to Penn State. Boom, Brady Berge is coming back to wrestle for the Nittany Lions. Was not expecting this. Came out of nowhere. He made the decision to come back to wrestle in college and said he felt the hunger to compete again, and he's taking advantage of the opportunity that is in front of him. Now, he was initially coaching at South Dakota State University, and now he's actually, with the support of Coach Hahn over at South Dakota State, he's coming back to the Nittany Lions. He said in this post that he plans to return to the role following this semester, so it seems like he will be wrestling for Penn State this semester, likely at 157 pounds, I would assume, is where he goes back. He's kind of been, unfortunately, like, plagued with injuries. He was having a pretty good run at last year's national championships, and then ended up through the concussion protocols and getting injured, not being able to compete. And I thought he was done. He thought he was done. Well, he is back, and I mean, I'm sure excited, and I'm sure you are too. But Hildebrandt made his debut against Maryland at 125 pounds. You know, like I said, this was the weekend of debuts with Kemerer and Suriano and Hildebrandt now in a Nittany Lions singlet. He won by fall in the first period against Maryland. And I'm excited to see this, I mean, potentially dominant heavyweight for Penn State. For the first time, we've had a dominant heavyweight since back in, like, when Nico Megaludis was wrestling, you know? And I'm excited to see how he does for the Nittany Lions this season. And Penn State, they won pretty big over the weekend. They shut out Maryland 46-0. Got bonus at 125 through 157, and then 184 through heavyweight also got bonus. I mean, great win for the Nittany Lions. And yeah, you may be like kind of writing it off, like, okay, it's over Maryland, but Maryland has okay, first of all, did I expect Maryland to necessarily compete with Penn State in the dual meet? No. Did I expect them to maybe get a win or two? Yeah, maybe. But this is Maryland's best season in, I mean, many years. They were on a 3-match winning dual streak, which is pretty darn good. They had a Southern Scuffle champion, which is pretty darn good. And, you know, so I think they're still on the come up despite this 46-0 shutout against the Nittany Lions. And then Penn State defeated Indiana 29-11. Hildebrandt started out again with a good win, 6-2 win. And he's, I'm sure, working with Kale on getting those bonus points up with that technique. A lot of kind of backups wrestled in that match. Seems like a couple guys were under the weather, as the announcer said. But Shunk and Meredith both bumped up for some reason, I guess, to wrestle. And I'm assuming now Berge's going to fill it back in at 157. But Edsel at 165, just a weight above, he's looking pretty darn good. He's looking solid for the Nittany Lions. I mean, his best win this season is over Brian Meyer of Lehigh, who beat Jake Wenzel this season, who was last year's national finalist. And next up is Rutgers and then Michigan next week, which I'm extremely looking forward to, that Michigan and Penn State duel. That's going to really show wrestling fans where those top couple of teams are. What did you think about this weekend in wrestling news? What was your favorite duel or match from the weekend? Mine has probably got to be that Cole Matthews over Micic match. That was super exciting. Thanks again to all the supporters on Patreon, and we'll talk to you soon.